Welcome to Towne Place Museum District Residence. I'm Scott Seeley, General Manager from Air Communities, owner and operator of Parktown. This is a special place. Situated on Benjamin Franklin Parkway, Parktown has a long and storied history. Constructed in the 1950s, the complex is listed on the National Registry of Historic Places and is the first mid-century modern multifamily complex in the Commonwealth to achieve this designation. A few years ago, we remodeled all apartments and common areas, carefully keeping the historic character-defining features. We rebranded it to Towne Place Museum District Residence to pay homage to our famous neighbors, Philadelphia's treasured cultural institutions, including the Philadelphia Museum of Art, the Barnes, the Franklin Institute, Moore College of Art, and several others. Our goal was to weave Parktown into the fabrics of the Parkway as an art and cultural destination, even as an apartment complex. However, the Museum District Residence had a big problem. We didn't have any art. So we decided to have a permanent collection and solicit artists from Philadelphia, the Commonwealth, throughout the country, and even the world. Our permanent collection, now at more than 150 pieces, represents established and up-and-coming artists and some commission work as well. We partnered with InLiquid to offer robust programming, temporary rotational exhibits, usually changed 3 times a year, artist talks and workshops, and the very popular drink and draw. What started as an idea to engage our residents became Air Communities and Parktown's gift to Philadelphia, a place where artists and residents alike can come to be inspired and educated while enjoying this creative, ever-changing, and vibrant community.
I would always go down in the basement and look for to do. I wanted to make something. I would gather tools and get all this equipment, the tools and materials on the table and ready to make something, and I never knew what to make, I didn't want to make a chair or something. Sometimes I started making stuff that, I needed to really focus on the whole process and do the thing to completion, but it never happened. When I got to Penn State and ended up in the art department, that's when I realized that I can make anything I want. I need to make something up. I need to come up with some idea that may or may not be a good idea, but I need to experiment and pull things together to end up with something that wasn't there before. I was always frustrated by the thought of trying to make a chair because somebody already, that's what people do, And for some reason in my brain, I had no desire to make something that's already been made before. Every day it's something different. Working on videos or other kind of photographic imagery. Other days I'm down here in the studio trying to get some machine to work, trying to sort of push this inchoate envelope of stuff that I'm working on. Usually a lot of my ideas never really come to completion. I just really dig the process of making things and seeing where they go. A lot of my best work is completely ununderstood when I start working on it, and as I go along, something emerges and I come up with something that I didn't expect, something that kind of surprises me, but that's the way I like it. I'm fascinated by evolution and change and science and mathematics and process. And it's all about discovery. You stumble onto something and then get real excited about it. I mean, some of my best pieces, especially the kinetic work, I have no idea. I'm just trying to put components together, and then I see some kind of movement happens and that leads to this or that, and I end up with what looks to someone else like this genius idea when I had almost nothing to do with it at all, other than I just dragged it together and started to, let things coalesce. What I like to think about is when I'm making art, I just love to let it happen and realize, well, that never happened before. Nobody's ever seen this. And that happens every day. I don't typically have an idea, I have a sense of, maybe what I want it to feel like, but not what it's going to be,
We are always responding to the time we live in and the environment. And yet I have known, and I've struggled with this, that because my work is abstract, not everybody can read it. I don't put messages out there that are explicit. And I've struggled with that, but I've come to accept, because I've struggled with it over the years and years, that if I put any concept around my art making, it just falls apart. I can't put any boundaries around it. I have to let it come out what it is. And it is, right now I'm finding right at this time that the work that I'm making literally like this week is a response to our world, right, to our immediate situation this week in our world. And it's coming spontaneously. And so I think I just have to continue to trust the process. When I was younger, I would say, you know how some artists have different words of when their work is flowing or when they're blocked? I would say, oh, the spirits are with me when it would flow. I always was trying to make that connection with the invisible or sort of stand in that place between the visible and, you know, between the seen and the unseen. Just stand in that kind of the crossroads, in the center of the crossroads. And that hasn't changed over the years. I think it's morphed in different ways, but it hasn't changed. Just wanting to make that connection with what I can't see. I'm really most interested in artists healing. So that is my context for making art and painting art. I want it to be visually compelling, because who's going to look at it if it's not visually compelling? But I also want it to have the context of healing, of bringing to the surface what needs to be brought to the surface. It's getting to stuff that's been unacknowledged, and that's allowing a process, and that's using a language to allow the process. So maybe that's where my practice of abstract art, you know, can come in. Is how do we acknowledge and actually come to recognize that which needs to be healed within us communally.
The work was done in this studio, but comes from these journals that I do mainly traveling abroad, usually in developing countries. By looking at that title, I know where I was, and what I was looking at. I want my work to present more thought than answer immediate questions. What makes a great piece of art for me is something that requires me to work in viewing it, to analyze it. I want something to establish more questions than it answers. That's the kind of stuff I like. That's what I try to do. It's not a painter's job to paint a picture of something. Regardless of your content, you're making it. You're using that, what's in front of you, or in your journals, or in your mind as a reference point, and you're making something. I taught figurative arts, you know, at Tyler, and you try to tell your students, well, you have a model there. Your job is to observe, analyze, and then respond, not copy. Perhaps somebody likes to sit down in front of it and stare at it for a while. I don't really care if they like it or dislike it. I don't want them to be apathetic about it. And I think if I've done that, yeah, that's pretty cool.
The square of the canvas is merely the classroom space. It's merely the stage. Painting and art making in general, and painting in particular, seem to be robust enough to take on a couple of things that I think are really important for me. I'm interested in philosophy. I found it a place where I could work on ideas, but not through a linguistic means. People think of painting as being about color, but I really think of painting as being about touch. I was working on a painting over here. I had a blank painting on the wall, and I said, you know, every time I put up a canvas, it's like a dare. Painting is it's a challenge. Every time you do a painting, you're confronting your own worth and merit. Every time you do a painting, you're thinking about what's of value to you. Paintings are sort of cruel in the way that they mercilessly reject pretense. All I'm doing is providing a home for me to work in and for to invite the viewer in to do whatever work the viewer has to do in that space. It's the me as the history of a painter that makes these objects that are constructed through a process that we call painting. And what is inside of me? Well, I choose a square because I have a deep need for a home. And the square provides me with a home. It's just the home on which the work can do its work. If you look down here, you can see these drips that are the remnant of a past painting. And so this is a good example of the way that I might work. It was like a square that created those drips. So I decided in this painting to actually create the square here, but instead of the drips getting thrown away as remnants of a process that are residing in my studio, I decided to lengthen the canvas so that the drips could then accompany the square as the painting gets presented to an audience in another time and space.
This new line of work that I've been doing is basically much smaller than anything that I've ever done before, and it's just based off a lot of line work and color with a lot of layering. So when you look at the works up close, you'll be able to see some underpaintings and what I call are really nice mistakes. I feel like some of these paintings are never ever complete. They just seem to be a work in progress that I've brought to some sort of a resolution. They're about the elements of art, is what they're about. You know, color, line, shape, form, positive, negative space. You know, you just try to organize those or compose those like a musician would with notes. In a lot of cases, the paintings sort of dictate to me what should be done next, and you do it sometimes by trial and error, and you know, those particular things is what makes it so fun to paint. I started moving smaller so I could work on multiple works at one time. You know, sometimes I'll have up to 8, 10 pieces going at once, and each one of those will begin to evolve. A lot of times, like now, over the last few months, I haven't painted, I'm just looking. I'm just trying to increase that vocabulary, combine it with some things that I've done, just to get a nice start on everything. I have a whole bunch of panels that are prepped and ready to go. I need to kind of resolve a couple things in my mind before I can resolve them on the canvas. You always want to be looking at other artists. I think that the moment that you stop looking and learning is the moment that, well, your art begins to die. Or you're going to be doing the same painting over and over again, different ways, for the rest of your life.
Hi, I'm Rachel Zimmerman. I'm the founding artistic director of InLiquid, which is an arts nonprofit based in Philadelphia. InLiquid has been honored to work with Parktown since 2016 in creating their permanent collection, curating rotating exhibits, and also producing creative and innovative programming for the museum district. InLiquid helps to sustain the working practices of individual artists and help them to be sustained by the culture of Philadelphia, which helps create job growth, opportunities, attract businesses, attract new people to the city. InLiquid would like to acknowledge Parktown's enormous support of this effort, and for that we are eternally grateful.